joined today by none other than the Kayla Braud. Bro, thank you so much for joining me today on the Softball America podcast.
Hey, thank you so much, Tara. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited for you and your new job and the new journey ahead of you. I'm just stoked for you. I'm really happy for you.
Well, Kayla, I'm so excited for you. And that's why we are here to talk a little bit about the three-time All-American. For those that don't know, Kayla Braud, three-time All-American at Alabama, now assistant coach, is back with the Crimson Tide and 2012 national champion. An epic championship. If you all haven't watched it, you should go back and watch Alabama Crimson Tide, a fun one. And I just kind of want to start there because now you're back. You've kind of had some time to settle in Tuscaloosa. What has that transition been like from you going from the Pacific Northwest to moving back to Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, I mean, just like when I went in college, there's definitely a transition going from the West Coast to the South. And I knew what I was getting into. You know, you go there for 4 years, and so you have an idea of what it is and what it's about and the community. But I think that's what's been really, really cool is the community has been just so welcoming. They have invited me back in open arms. I feel like I'm just kind of back into my family routine here, to be quite honest. I mean, there's so many people that I knew from my time here. So it didn't really feel like we were going and doing something new with my family. And, my husband, David, he was with me when I was in college. So he knows all of my friends. He knows everybody that's here. It's incredible the number of staff that are still here at the university from when I played. I mean, we have the same video coordinators, the same photographers, like the same, just people that you see in and out of the offices every single day, whether it's compliance to now they're athletic directors, whatever it may be. It's just, it kind of went pretty seamlessly. I was like, oh yeah, I know all these people. This isn't that hard to get to know everybody again. So that was kind of fun. But, coming back, there's always that transition from being a player to now being a coach. So that's been really fun to be a part of. I think with our staff, with Murph, it's just been really fun to be honest. We're trying new things. It's just been a really great experience for me and my family so far.
And Kayla, I want to talk a little bit about that transition, going from being an ESPN analyst to covering these games, analyzing these games on television. You get to see a wide variety of programs. What do you feel like that transition has been like for you, going from analyst now, from player to analyst now to coach?
Yeah, I think it's cool because number one, I think I offer a really unique perspective. I think everybody else that's in the coaching world that's been there for a long time has just a different view. I had a very objective view. I saw a bigger picture. I wasn't in the grind of every weekend you're watching your game and your game on 100% and then getting snippets of all the other ones. Like, I mean, I was fully studying almost every single game across the country throughout a weekend. So different vantage point, I think, helps from a preparation standpoint. I can see a little bit differently. I know some teams that Alabama might not a little bit more. And then I think too, I laughed because, we're in the office the other day and Murph's like, all right, I need scouting reports on these teams, bro. Do you think you can do it? And I was like, Murph, that's what I did for the last 10 years. I think I'm going to be all right. That's how we prep for TV. I'm like, I think I'm going to be all right doing scouting reports because again, like, come on, man. Yeah. Yes. We didn't just, twiddle our thumbs on TV and make stuff up. I was like, I got that. Yeah. So, definitely. There's definitely some things that translate, and then there's obviously some things that don't, and that's been a learning curve. But being out there on the field every day, being active, being a part of it has been really, really fun.
Oh, that's incredible. I would have loved to be a part of that conversation. Yeah, Murph, no, I got this.
Yeah,
Well, I want to kind of go back to that. Can you describe what your first day back at Rhodes was like? Like what type of emotions were you feeling when you kind of stepped back on the field at Rhodes? Because you probably can remember what you ate that day, what you're wearing, all that stuff. Because I feel like you're one of those people that was probably a pretty big moment.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you two moments. So I took a secret trip back to Tuscaloosa after I had accepted the job to go look for housing before it was public, and nobody knew when I was there except for the core staff and our director of operations, Jaden. The second night that I got there, she just took me to the field. She at night turned on all the lights, put on my like walk up song, and played catch with me on the outfield. And I was just like, getting emotional out there because it's such an important time. And it was like, it was her idea. And she's just like, no, I got this. We're going to go do something fun. And it was kind of a really great emotional point. And that was like my nostalgic moment, for sure, coming back and being like, wow, this is real. I'm coming back to Tuscaloosa. And then my first day of practice. So crazy. I actually flew in, we moved 2 days, a day and a half really before fall practice started. So I had a full maybe 24 hours to get settled in before practice. So day 1 was like crazy. I was like in office. It was like, here's all your gear. Here's your computer. Here's all your stuff. And then it was like, we're doing lunch. So we went over and did like a celebratory welcome lunch and then went over to practice. And it was just honestly like the day flew by and I was exhausted by the end of it because it was like hugs and tears and just a lot of attention and you're like I just want to get to the field and practice at that point. But it was awesome.
I have goosebumps when that story of you throwing on the field. That's just like that's what there should be a movie made about that. That's incredible. Maybe there is something close to that. Um, so you're back at in Tuscaloosa. You're back at Rhodes. Um, what advice would you give, coaches that are maybe young coaches that are getting into their career or those that are coming out of a different career and getting back into coaching? What advice would you give them now that you're in it for about 6 months in that transition? What are kind of the three things or a couple things that you learned?
I think first and foremost, what I tried to do was be really patient. My first few weeks, I probably leaned trying to be more quiet, observant, get to know the girls. That was always my first real job in the first couple weeks was going early. They're hitting in the cages on their own. I go up to them, get to know them, ask them about their families, ask them about their days, what majors are they in, just trying to get to know them because I think that's the first thing. If you come in and try and be, you know, I'm going to fix everything. I'm going to change this. We're going to do this my way. I don't think kids respond to that really well. So building relationships and being patient was probably the first thing that I did. And again, I had the ability to do that a little bit because we had a veteran coaching staff and everybody else had kind of already been in the groove of it. So I could kind of take a step back and um, just honestly learn a little bit first. Um, and then after that, you maintain those relationships, you come in with a really positive attitude every single day and kind of started to become curious. What can I do? How do I fit in the puzzle? What impact can I make? Where's going to be the most significant role that I can play? And I think for a lot of people, not jumping into that too fast, right? Just, hey, where am I most needed? What can I serve this team the most? How do I fit well with the coaching staff? And again, for me, a coaching staff that had already gelled, they'd gone on the trip to Italy. They had been practicing for a few weeks together before I got there. And, like a Coach Murphy who's been there for 30 years, that system's kind of already in place. So again, just being curious and figuring out where I fit and finding the right things to say, the right moments where I could take over and the areas where I felt like, man, this is a weakness. Like maybe I'm going to try and build that into our strength. So that was it. I think patience and curiosity.
Two great things to focus on. And you mentioned Murph and you've known him a really long time. What do you think? Have you noticed a change in Murph since you've been back? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's so funny. There was a day at practice where the girls came up to me and they were like, "We heard Murph was so much harder on you guys than he is on us." And I think that happens with every coach as they go throughout their career. You kind of just learn a little bit more, and you don't yell as much. You're not on him as much. It's a different kind of thing. But I was like, yeah, it's probably accurate, you know. Um, but I think kidding aside, I think where he's evolved a lot, where I've seen is that he has really done a good job, number one, of trusting his staff and really delegating. Like he trusts myself, Lance McMahon, Adam Arbor, Ryan Imuri. Like he trusts us really, really completely, which is such a cool thing. Like he is willing to try new things. He's willing to let us run with something that we think might work, a new drill, a new game, something to adjust practice, a new challenge, whatever it may be. He's like, let's try it. And I think that's been the coolest thing about being back is that, and he said this himself, he has like a renewed sense of energy And um, you think about his previous coaching staff, that was only a couple years ago. That's Allison Habits and Steph Van Brakel. Steph's a player that coached with him for a really long time, that got the head coaching job at Memphis, and then Allie, who decided to retire. So really, Lance is in his second year as pitching coach. I'm in my first year as assistant coach. Adam's in his first year as hitting coach, and Ryan's in her first year as player development. So when you think about all of those things, like we're all fresh and new, we're trying new things, and we're trying to figure it out. And he has been incredibly on board with letting us like go.
That I mean, breaking it down like that, Kayla, that's why you're so good at what you do. Like I have all this listed. I'm like, oh, Kayla just does it for me. Fantastic. So I want to talk a little bit about hitting, and then we're going to get into some recruiting stuff. But so you spoke about Adam and Ryan and Lance, but I want to focus on Adam and Ryan and you and that relationship and how you're working with the hitters at Alabama now. What does that look like day in and day out at practice?
Yeah, we're really excited. Adam, Ryan, and I meet every single day. We're a unit. We really go and attack hitting like full steam together. Adam definitely has done a really nice job of simplification, I think. We have a really clear, organized, outlined way of hitting. We have great repetition at practice. We have just a great routine in everything that we do. And that's the number one thing that he's brought, I think, is a simplicity and routine. And the girls know exactly what they're supposed to do when every single day. And the amount of times that we hear them say, like, man, it's been so wonderful learning from him, from me, from Ryan, because of how clear and how we all try and really use one voice when we talk about hitting, because that is, I think, overwhelming for hitters is to hear five different things coming at you and not really know which one to listen to. So we try and really communicate a lot, have a unified front, and I think that helps our girls. But to be honest, every single player has improved greatly. And the amount of just positive feedback that we hear from them about how they feel like they understand what they're supposed to do so much better, how they understand their goal, the movement, the spin, timing, whatever it is, it's just been really awesome to be a part of.
That's incredible. So we'll keep an eye on the Alabama Crimson Tide and that offense. It should be fun to watch this season. But I want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little better about recruiting because that's another aspect of the job. And I was able to see you out this fall,
Yes.
out and about recruiting, repping the Alabama Crimson Tide attire in a few places. But I want to talk to a little bit about that, Kayla, because I know recruiting is obviously such a huge part of what you do at Alabama as well. What type of athlete are you looking for to come into Alabama softball, and how have you found that recruiting, grind being on the road and as a new, assistant coach at Alabama?
Yeah, I think, as you know, Tara, coming from a program that has a very strong identity. I mean, you talk about like Bama U, our cultural identity. You talk about the Bruin bubble, whatever it is. There is a strong sense of tradition. So when we recruit kids, we want kids that we feel fit our culture, that are willing to say, "Hey, I want to play for Alabama," and they say that loudly and proudly. We have like our core values, and one of them that Murphy talks about all the time is that mudita factor, is that just as happy for someone else's success as you are as it was your own. So we want kids that come in that want to work really really hard, but also find the joy in celebrating themselves and others. And that's a huge platform of our program. So I think with us, we're very fortunate that we wear Alabama across our chest and that we have that name recognition. So that way, when we recruit kids, we want ones that fit our culture, first and foremost. Beyond that, though, I mean, we want competitive kids. Murph asked me when I was sitting on my recruiting trip on a scale of 1 to 10, how competitive are you? 10 being I'd slap my mom across the face to win. Right? I don't know if he still asks that, but he asked me that, and I was like, 8, and my mom looks at me, she goes, "Kayla, you're a 10." And I was like, "Well, I just didn't wanna say in front of you, mom, that I'd slap you across the face." She's like, "No, like, you're a 10." And I was. But, I was like, "Man, is this a trick question? Are we, like, talking about slapping our moms?" Um,
I'm
so
guessing he probably doesn't ask that anymore.
I hope not. I hope he doesn't. He probably does not. Um He probably has another thing that he asks, I'm sure that's great.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, we want competitors and we want athletes. You talk about what kind of athlete I want. I want a player that has power, strength, speed. Um, we this season, if you look at our roster, we're gonna have a lot of athleticism to the point where shouting out our catchers, like both of our catchers can steal bases, like it's unbelievable. We want people that are able to play multiple positions because in the game of softball, if you're tied to one position, somebody gets hurt. I think that's the fastest way that we lose consistency, and we just want to be able to be like next man up. So again, someone that can play multiple positions, that has some good game sense. That's what we're looking for, and those things seem obvious, but you can go and you watch kids at an elite level. Do they hustle on and off the field? Do they talk to their teammates? Do they look confident? Do they carry their glove a certain way? Do they um, carry their body language in a certain way? Because I think that's a red flag for me is if I see somebody strike out and then they just shoulder slump and they sit in the dugout and they take themselves out of the game, and that tells me sometimes that they won't fit in our culture because it's not all about you. You have to find a way to positively impact the game even if you are struggling. So those are just some things that we really focus on and we really want.
It's interesting, Kayla, because I've asked this question to a few coaches, and I think that's an overarching theme. I think obviously there are a lot of talented players out there, but reaction, how you react to failure,
Yeah.
how you treat your teammates, your energy, and your positivity is up there on the list. And I feel like that's something that maybe not many players really realize or even train. They're getting into the cage and want to hit more balls off the tee or off the machine or want to get more reps. But uh, I think that's a huge piece that not many players really realize how huge it is.
Yeah, I think too, and just having the maturity and being able to look inside yourself and say, is what I'm doing beneficial to the people around me? And that's a simple thing, but it takes a kid just being, hey, a little bit cognizant of what I'm doing affects the people around me. And I think when you look at the team and the teams that go on to win Women's College World Series, there's always that sense of togetherness, that sense of unity. You ask any champion, and it took every single player on the team. It didn't just take one pitcher to win a national championship, and there had to be some cohesiveness. So if you can start building that at a young age, it's really, really important. I think that's for sure a challenge for kids these days too. Because honestly, I mean, Tara, you and I grew up in an era as well that we played differently. I mean, I went to one exposure tournament a year and it was nationals. Like that's it. These kids are going all year, so it's just a different type of competition, and so it's a different type of pressure on these kids, and they think about it differently rather than just having the freedom to compete and play for each other. So it's definitely a different thing. So those little things, like you mentioned, how they treat their teammates, how they treat their parents, goes a long way.
And you're right, Kayla. I think it's been an eye opener for me being out looking at the recruiting landscape. I didn't have any clue that these kids were flying all across the country to go to various camps at various colleges, playing in these tournaments, these exposure tournaments. There's a ton of pressure on these kids from a really, really young age, and I think it's a key point for parents and players and for anyone watching this is to realize that how kids manage that failure, players manage that failure, and being in that spotlight. I think it's a huge challenge. So um, we're going to implement some really good strategies here on Softball America to help kind of get players through that. And I think that mental health piece and really the mental training stuff is going to be really important moving forward. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So off the recruiting box, if you are a recruit, I think you should look up Mudita because Kayla Braud has mentioned it a few times, and that's what Alabama Crimson Tide are all about. So go ahead and take a look at that. And now I want to get into uh, the 2024 squad, Kayla, because a lot of question marks with Montana being gone in the circle. But if you take a look at Torrance and Salter, what they were able to do when Montana had an injury last season, and the addition of Kayla Beaver in the circle as well. I want to get a little bit of an outlook for the Crimson Tide ending into 2024. We'll start in the circle. What are you seeing from the pitchers? Because I know you're probably analyzing them for your hitters. What are you seeing from your pitching staff and what Lance been able to do with them?
Yeah, I'm really excited about our pitching staff. I think it's a big unknown. You mentioned Montana being gone. I think that we come in with not a ton of expectation, and I think that favors us a little bit. So we have 6 pitchers this year, which is the most that Coach Murphy's ever had on staff, on a pitching staff here at Alabama. So that's a really key thing for us, and definitely something that we thought was very important going into the season. You can't replace Montana, so how do you man the pitching staff? As you get more bodies, and so we have 6 really great pitchers. You mentioned Alex Salter, Jayla Torrance. We have transfer Caleb Beaver, transfer Ailey Johnson. Um, we have transferred 2 years ago Lauren Essman from Michigan, and then we have freshman Jocelyn Brisky. And I think it's really cool because all 6 of them are going to contribute this year without a doubt. And all 6 of them offer something really different. I think each of them's unique. There's not 2 that are mirror images of each other. They're really different. And that's one of the hardest things that we've heard from our hitters this year is trying to go from one to the other. Because in a lot of our scrimmages, as you know, when you scrimmage, the pitcher gets a couple innings, you get maybe one at bat, and then they switch out really quick, and it makes adjusting really, really hard. And that's something that we've been hearing from our hitters. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them in the circle this season for us because I think they're going to really surprise a lot of people.
And I think that's something that a lot of, college fans, softball fans are looking at. And I want to talk a little bit about Montana, just her impact on the program, and if she's been able to come back, and what what was like to be a part of not only Bama U as an alumni, but Montana Fouts' impact on Alabama softball.
Yeah, she came back for a fall game, and then I saw her one other time this fall. And to be honest with you, Tara, like she was one of the calls that I made. I wanted to get her advice on this team to get to know them, and I take a lot of pride in Montana for being one of the best alumni that we've ever had, and how she represents Bama U and how she bleeds crimson and everything that she gave up, sacrificed, especially after injury last year. She's just the epitome of what it means to be a true competitor and to lay it all on the line for your teammates. Like, you talk about what kind of people we want, like we want nuggets of Montana. Basically, we want little Montanas. You're not gonna be Montana, but if you got some Montana in you, we want that. Um, so it's been really cool, and honestly, I think her legacy lives on. I think what she's been able to teach the girls on the team, the pitching staff, like I can see that Jayla Torrance has been influenced by Montana. I think she offers some maturity and some perspective that Montana gave her last season, and she gets to pitch this year with that inside of her, which I think is so cool. But yeah, Montana is the best representation, and I'm really excited for her because I know she's crushing it with camps and clinics and spreading the word, and helping change little girls and help them on their dream to be Montana, the next Montana Fout. So it's really cool.
And it is all true too, because I was able to witness Alabama at Ole Miss just a season ago. She was the last one to leave and signing autographs for any person that wanted one. The bus was waiting and out and for the Alabama bus, and Montana was still signing autographs. So yes, incredible. Not only for Alabama but for the sport of softball.
Yeah.
Montana felt. So now I want to get into hitting. Obviously, you lose some big guns in Prangy and Shipman. But let's talk a little bit about that offense and what you're seeing from your offense.
Yeah, I really like what our offense has done. We talked a little bit about hitting and Adam and Ryan's impact as well as my own. I think that they are creating their identity, and that's been really cool to see. Again, creating their identity by, simplification almost. They know what their roles are, they know how they can impact the offense, and just kind of making sure that they execute on pitch selection, hit the ball hard, just keeping it really simple. So when you look at our offense, though, I think we're going to be extremely athletic. We have a lot of speed. I'm really excited about it. I think the interesting makeup of our team is that we have 9 seniors and 9 sophomores. So it feels in some ways that we're really veteran, and then other ways it just feels like we're so young. And I think there's going to be some young players, especially in that sophomore class, that are going to get a ton of opportunity that you're going to see bust through the zone. Like I'm really excited about players like Larissa Pruitt, Kristen White, Riley Valentine, Marley Giles, like all on that side. Kenley Cahalan, like we all already know about her. But those sophomores, I think, are going to be huge impact players for us this season. And they all are a little bit more mature. They're all a little bit more ready to face D1 pitching. So I'm really excited for them.
And we've got Kenley Cahalan as one of our breakout stars potentially for the year. you just threw out a bunch of names, but if you were to make a prediction, who would you say is the one that to keep an eye on that maybe flying under the radar for the Alabama Crimson Tide, maybe flying on the radar, but may have a big season for Alabama?
Yeah, I think Kenley is the number one person that I would circle for that one. I think you watch her in BP, and she is just one of the most talented hitters that I've seen in a while. I think she has this incredible ability to just hit the ball really hard. She has one of those, like the ball sounds different off of her bat. You know, those people, you're just like, how does it sound like that? Kenley is one of those. And again, her maturity. But hitting aside, Tara, we had a scrimmage the other day. Her at shortstop, she made some I think she, like, turned 3 double plays. She made, like, 2 plays that I would put on SportsCenter top 10. Like, she is an underrated shortstop as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, we'll keep an eye on that and make sure that we're tracking how Kaylin is doing there up the middle for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But I want to close with this. Now I know we've gone through a lot, but you're home and you're with family and your husband and your daughter are there with you. I know that Dylan has been at your daughter has been at practice with you. What has that kind of been like for you to raise your daughter alongside all these incredibly talented women, strong women, but to have her be a part of that and be a part of Alabama?
Yeah, it's easily the most special part of my job. There's days where you're, like, tired, it's a tough practice, and the girls will walk in to the facility, and she'll be into the clubhouse, and she's standing there, and she's like, "Hi," and they're like, "Dylan," and all of a sudden, like, you just the stress, the whatever you're dealing with that day kind of evaporates, and that's the beauty of having a smiley, happy two-year-old in the clubhouse is that you can't be grumpy around her. You just it's impossible. So I think it's a mutually beneficial arrangement because you're right. She gets to see girls that are driven, that are working so hard in school, in the hitting facility, that are grinding at practice, like diving, making all these plays. And she gets to see that. She gets to see like all out effort, hard work, dedication every single day. Not to mention that they are all sweet to her and take the time. Like I mean, there's days where they'll be 20, 30 minutes after practice and they're still playing on the tees with Dylan and she's hitting and swinging. And I'm like, you guys need to go home, like, go home. And they're like, no, we're good. We're fine. So it's been really, really special. And even just the community, like I knew it was going to be good, but being able to go to Coleman for a basketball game or, Bryant Denny for a football game or watch the gymnastics team compete and she's like locked in. I'm like, this is the coolest life. I mean, it's so awesome for her. So I keep calling her, she's going to be have you ever seen them Remember the Titans? And there's the little daughter that's in the
Yes.
stand. I'm like, that's going to be Dylan. She's going to be die hard. She's going to be yelling at umpires. It's going to be great.
Oh man, that is it's so incredible. And I want to close with this, Kayla. What are you most looking forward to? We're just, almost days away from season starting. And it's going to be your first season back in a while. What are you most looking forward to?
I think, competing, like, on TV, you're just objective. Win, lose, doesn't matter. You go home and you're like, "Ah, if it was a good game, I'm happy," you know? Like, it doesn't matter who wins or loses on the other side of it, and so to have some skin in the game, I think for me, and just to kinda fire up my competitive juices, and again, equally, like, it seems silly, but I'm equally disappointed for those games you're like, "Oh, we had it. We were so close," because it's gonna make the ones that we win so much better, so I just wanna compete and have that emotional tie. I'm rooting for somebody again, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, for somebody that is a 10 on the competitive scale,
Yeah.
slap scale,
Yeah,
we're gonna
exactly. Slab scale 10, full 10.
heading back on the field is going to be really fun. So, in taking a look at your schedule as well, what series, what games are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm super I think with the stretch, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, that's the one we're circling that I'm really excited for because think about Florida, Georgia, when I played, those were our 2 biggest rivals. So you best believe I'm like, we get them back-to-back weeks opening, and we play Florida State in between us. I was like, "All right, we're going, 7-0. Let's go."
Yeah, that's March 9th. That's Florida. Well, it's a home series in
Yep.
Tuscaloosa. Then on the road in Tallahassee at Florida State, and then on the road at Georgia. for Alabama Crimson Tide. Whew, that is a tough
Yeah.
slate. I love it.
Yeah.
Uh, opening up in Georgia against Villanova on the Thursday against Nova, opening day, Villanova Longwood, and then Fridays against Georgia Tech as well, following up Longwood again on Saturday and Georgia Tech on Saturday. That's week 1 for Alabama out in Georgia. So make sure everybody takes note and stays tuned to watch Crimson Tide on week 1. Kayla, final thoughts?
Roll Tide, Tara. That's my final thought.
I love it. Tara Henry of the Softball America podcast for Kayla Braud. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. Subscribe, subscribe. If you enjoyed this podcast, your support is greatly appreciated, and we'll see you very soon.